Love didn't break me. That's the lie I've been telling, and the one I almost believed. You hear a man say he doesn't believe in love, and you think he's cold, untouchable, like he's above it. But that sentence, it's not confidence. It's a shield, polished, practiced, and held so tightly it starts to feel like part of the skin. I didn't wake up one day and decide love was a weakness. I studied it, watched it fail in slow motion, watched people promise forever with eyes that couldn't even hold a week. I learned early that words are cheap, but expectations, they cost everything. So I built something better, something predictable, control, and I got good at it. You'd see me now, and you'd think I have it all figured out. My time is structured, my mind is sharp. I don't chase, I choose. People gravitate, adjust, lean in without realizing it. I don't raise my voice, I don't lose my frame, I don't fall. At least, that's what it looks like. But there's a moment, always the same moment, that no one earns access to. It happens at night. The room goes quiet, not peaceful quiet, the kind that presses against your chest. The lights are off except for the faint glow from the city bleeding through the curtains. My phone lights up sometimes, names, notifications, invitations, but I let it fade, because none of it feels real. And that's the part I don't say out loud. You can build a life so structured, so controlled, that nothing can hurt you, but nothing can reach you either. Tell me something honestly, would you feel safe with a man who never loses control, or would you start wondering what he's hiding underneath it? Because I know what's underneath mine. It's not chaos, it's doubt. A quiet, calculated voice that questions everything before it has a chance to exist. It doesn't scream, it whispers. What if this isn't real? What if she sees through you? What if you let her in, and she realizes you're not as unshakable as you seem? So I learned to stay ahead of it. I analyze, I read between words. I notice shifts in tone, pauses in replies, changes in energy. I don't react, I anticipate. By the time something has the chance to hurt me, I've already created distance. You'd call it emotional intelligence. I call it preemptive withdrawal. And here's the uncomfortable truth most people won't admit. Some of us don't sabotage love because we're broken. We sabotage it because we're too aware of how quickly people change, too aware of how fragile connection really is, too aware that the same person who looks at you like you're everything can wake up one day and feel nothing. So we don't risk it, we refine it, control it, keep it just close enough to feel something, but never close enough to lose ourselves. And you? Yeah, I'm talking to you now. You might think a man like me is hard to get. That if you just show up right, say the right things, prove you're different, you'll be the exception. But what if the problem was never about finding the right woman? What if it's about a man who doesn't know how to exist without his armor? Because here's something I've never said this clearly before. I don't trust my feelings. Not fully. I question them, filter them, sometimes even ignore them until they disappear. Because feelings, they don't follow logic, they don't respect timing, and once you let them lead, you lose control, and control has been the one thing that never betrayed me. At least, that's what I told myself. But there are cracks now, small ones, moments where I feel something I can't immediately explain or suppress, a memory that lingers longer than it should, a face that doesn't fade as quickly as the others, a sentence someone said that echoes at the wrong time. And for a second, just a second, I hesitate. Not because I don't know what to do, but because I do. And I'm starting to wonder if I've been choosing safety at the cost of something I can't get back. So when I say I don't believe in love the way you think I do, it's not because I haven't felt it, it's because I've spent years learning how not to. And now, I'm not sure if that was strength, or the most controlled form of fear imaginable. Because if I'm being honest with you, really honest, there was a moment, one I haven't told anyone about, where everything I built almost slipped, where control didn't feel like power anymore. It felt like distance, and I didn't know whether to hold on tighter, or finally let it fall. Winning gets quiet after a while. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. You don't expect that part. No one tells you that the louder your life becomes on the outside, the more silent it gets when you're alone with it. You think success will echo. You think it will follow you into every room, sit beside you, remind you that you did something right. It doesn't. There's a version of me you would admire instantly, the one who walks into a room and doesn't look around for approval, the one who speaks less but somehow gets heard more. Decisions come easy to him. People trust him without knowing why. He doesn't chase attention. It bends toward him. That version of me is real, but it's not complete, because the same man who can command a room can't always sit still in one. There was a night, not long ago, I came back from a room full of people who would have said my name with respect if you asked them. Deals closed, hands shaken, laughter that sounded real enough to pass. I remember unlocking the door, stepping inside, and just stopping. No music, no voices, just the low hum of the air conditioning and the faint buzz of the city outside. I didn't turn the lights on right away. I stood there in the dark longer than I should have. Not because I was tired, but because I didn't feel like stepping into what was waiting for me, which was nothing. And that's the part that hits you when you build a life like this. There's no one there when it's over. No one to look at you without expectation. No one who isn't calculating your value based on what you can offer next. Just space. Controlled, curated, impressive space. That doesn't care if you're in it or not. Tell me something. If a man can have everything most people chase and still feel like something's missing, what does that say about what we're actually chasing? Because I used to think the answer was more. More success, more discipline, more distance from anything that could disrupt my focus. I convinced myself that if I just kept stacking wins, eventually it would fill whatever this gap was. It didn't. It just made the gap harder to explain. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Achievement doesn't cure loneliness, it just hides it behind something people respect. And respect is a dangerous substitute for connection, because people don't question it. They see you doing well, and they assume you must feel well too. They don't look for cracks in someone who looks like they've figured it out. And you start playing into that illusion, because it's easier than explaining something you don't fully understand yourself. So you keep moving, keep building, keep distracting, but every now and then, it slows down, and when it does, you notice things you weren't supposed to notice, like how silence isn't neutral, it's revealing. It shows you what's not there. I've had nights where I sat on the edge of my bed, scrolling through conversations that meant nothing, trying to convince myself I had options, that I wasn't lacking anything, that this was a choice, and technically, it was. But that doesn't mean it felt like one, because deep down, there's a difference between choosing solitude and realizing you don't know how to choose anything else. That's a hard thing to admit when your entire identity is built on control. Because if you can't control that part of your life, what does that say about you? And don't get it twisted. I'm not weak. I don't fall apart. I don't sit there drowning in emotion, waiting for someone to save me. I've trained myself too well for that. I know how to stabilize, how to refocus, how to move forward without hesitation. But strength has a blind spot. It teaches you how to endure, not how to open. And opening, that's a different kind of risk. One I've avoided longer than I'd like to admit, because the moment you let someone in, even a little, you introduce variables you can't control, expectations you didn't set, emotions you didn't approve, and suddenly, that clean, structured life you built starts to feel unpredictable. So I kept it simple. I kept it efficient. Connections that didn't demand too much. Conversations that stayed on the surface. Just enough closeness to feel human. Never enough to feel exposed. It worked, until it didn't. Until I started noticing that even in rooms full of people, I was still alone in a way no one could see. And that's when a different thought started creeping in. Not loud, not urgent, just persistent. What if the life I built to protect me is the same one keeping everything real out? And if that's true, then all this control, all this power, all this distance, isn't freedom. It's isolation with better lighting. So now I'm here, standing in rooms I used to dream about, feeling something I can't easily explain. Not emptiness, exactly, more like absence, like something should be here, and it isn't. And I keep asking myself the same question I've been avoiding. If I let someone close enough to change that, would I even know how to handle it? Or would I do what I've always done? And walk away before it has the chance to become something I can't control. Because there was a moment recently, just one, where I almost didn't. I remember the exact second it almost became real. Not the whole night, just that moment. Everything before it felt controlled, predictable, like every other interaction I've mastered. The lighting was low, warm, the kind that makes everything feel softer than it is. There was a quiet between us, not awkward, not forced, just present. And that's what made it dangerous. Because silence like that doesn't ask for performance. It asks for truth. You were sitting across from me, saying something simple, nothing dramatic, nothing rehearsed. But the way you said it, there was no angle, no hidden intention, just honesty, delivered without trying to impress me. And I felt it. That shift, subtle, but sharp. Like something inside me moved out of alignment. For a second I wasn't analyzing. I wasn't predicting where this was going or how it would end. I wasn't 10 steps ahead, preparing my exit. I was just there, with you. Do you understand how rare that is for someone like me, to not be in control of the moment? It should have felt freeing. It didn't. It felt like standing on the edge of something I couldn't measure. And that's when it started. The internal split. One part of me leaned in, curious, open, almost relieved. Like maybe, Finally, this didn't have to be calculated. Maybe I didn't have to manage every word, every reaction, every possible outcome. Maybe I could just exist in it and see what happens. But the other part, the one that built everything I have, it stepped in fast, quiet, but firm. This is how it starts. That's what it said, not out loud, but clear enough. This is how you lose control. And suddenly, everything changed. Your voice didn't change. The room didn't change. But my perception did. I started noticing things I hadn't noticed seconds before. The way you looked at me, too direct. The way you listened, too focused. The way you didn't try to impress me, too real. And real things, they come with risk. Here's the uncomfortable truth I don't say often. I don't fear rejection the way most people do. I fear attachment. Because rejection ends something that barely started. Attachment, that rewires you. It changes your patterns, your priorities, your sense of control. It introduces dependency in places you've trained to be independent. And once that happens, you're not the same. And I've spent years becoming exactly who I am. So I did what I've always done. I adjusted. My tone shifted just enough to create distance. My responses became slightly more measured, slightly less revealing. I didn't pull away completely, just enough to reestablish control. You probably didn't even notice it in the moment. Most people don't. They just feel something change and can't explain why. But I noticed, every second of it. I watched myself do it. And here's where it gets complicated. I didn't want to. That's the part I hate admitting. Because it would be easier if I could say I lost interest. That something about you didn't meet my standards. That I saw a flaw and decided it wasn't worth it. But none of that was true. You didn't give me a reason to pull back. I created one. Out of nothing. Out of instinct. Out of fear. Disguised as discipline. Tell me something honestly. Have you ever felt someone pull away right when things started to feel real? And you blamed yourself for it? You replayed conversations, analyzed your words, wondered what you did wrong. What if I told you? Sometimes it has nothing to do with you. Sometimes you just got close enough to trigger something they've been avoiding for years. And instead of facing it, they retreat. Not loudly, not dramatically, just subtly. Enough to protect themselves. Enough to keep you at a distance. Enough to stay in control. That night didn't end badly. That's what makes it worse. There was no argument. No clear breaking point. Just a gradual shift back into something safer. Something familiar. Something I knew how to manage. We left like two people who could have been something, but chose not to define it, and I told myself the same thing I always do. It's better this way. Clean. Simple. No complications. But later that night, when everything was quiet again, that moment came back. The one I couldn't control. The one where I almost let go of everything I built just to feel something real for a second longer. And I started asking myself a question I didn't have an answer for. What if I didn't step back? What if I stayed in that moment just a little longer? Would it have changed anything? Or would it have changed me? I didn't lose you. I escaped you. That's the part I couldn't admit at first, because it sounds weak coming from a man who built his entire identity on control. But the truth doesn't care how it makes you look. It just waits until you're quiet enough to hear it. And that realization didn't hit me in the moment. It hit me later. Late enough that it couldn't be undone. It was one of those nights where everything slows down, whether you want it to or not. No distractions left. No meetings to run to. No noise to hide behind. Just me, sitting in a room that looked exactly the way I designed it to. Clean, sharp, intentional, empty. The kind of empty that doesn't ask for attention, but takes it anyway. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in my hand, your name still there. Conversation unfinished, not ended, just left suspended, like something waiting for a decision I had already made without saying it out loud. And I stared at it longer than I expected, not because I didn't know what to do, but because I knew exactly what I had done. That's when it shifted. Not the situation, the awareness. I saw the pattern clearly for the first time without justifying it. I don't get rejected. I exit. I don't get hurt. I avoid. I don't lose control. I remove anything that threatens it. Sounds strong, right? It's not. It's predictable. And predictable men don't build real connections. They build controlled environments where nothing unexpected can survive. Here's the uncomfortable truth I had to face. I don't struggle with love. I struggle with letting it exist without managing it. Every time something real starts forming, I don't lean in. I start adjusting variables. I watch, I calculate, I test reactions. I create emotional distance just to see if it changes anything. And when it does, I use that as confirmation. See, it was unstable anyway. But what I never admitted was this. I was the one destabilizing it, not because I wanted to ruin it, but because part of me needed proof that it wouldn't last. Because if it did, if it stayed consistent, if it remained real even when I wasn't controlling it, Then I'd have to face something I've been avoiding for years, that I don't actually know how to receive something genuine without questioning it. Tell me something. If someone showed up in your life with no games, no confusion, no inconsistency, would you recognize it? Or would you start looking for what's wrong with it just to feel familiar again? Because chaos, it's easier to understand. You know where you stand when things are unstable. You know how to react. You know how to protect yourself. But consistency? Consistency requires trust. And trust means you have to put something down. Control. That's where I fail. Not publicly, not in ways people can point out, but internally, in the moments that actually matter. I keep one hand on the door, always, just in case. Just in case I need to leave before something shifts, before expectations grow, before emotions deepen into something I can't easily detach from. It's a quiet habit, refined, almost invisible, but it costs more than I realized. Because every time I leave early, I don't just avoid potential pain, I guarantee the same ending, distance. And after a while, you start noticing something you can't ignore. It's not them, it's you. That realization isn't loud, it doesn't come with some dramatic breakdown or emotional explosion. It's quieter than that, more precise, like a thought that lands and doesn't move. You've been doing this the whole time, and suddenly, all those situations you labeled as not right, not aligned, not worth it, start looking different, not wrong, just interrupted by you. And here's the part that unsettled me the most. I couldn't even tell you what I was protecting anymore. Because the life I built, it's stable. It works. It keeps me respected, focused, untouched, but it also keeps everything at a distance, including the one thing I claim I don't believe in. So now I'm sitting there, looking at your name on my screen, realizing something I can't unsee. You didn't walk away from me. I never let you get close enough to try, and for the first time, that didn't feel like control. It felt like loss, not loud, not dramatic, just final, like something that ended before it even had the chance to begin. And the question that followed, the one I haven't answered yet, wasn't, did I make the right choice? It was something far more uncomfortable. If I keep choosing control like this, will anything real ever survive long enough to reach me, or will I keep mistaking my ability to leave for strength? You were never the risk. I was. That's the part I wish I could have told you sooner, before distance started speaking louder than anything I said. Before my silence made you question things that were never yours to carry, because from your side I know how it looked. You showed up, you were present, real, in a way that doesn't need to be explained, and then slowly, something shifted. Not enough to point at, not enough to call out, but enough to feel. And you probably asked yourself the same question most people do in that position. What did I do wrong? Let me stop you right there. You didn't do anything wrong. That's not comfort. That's fact. But here's the uncomfortable truth that comes with it. Sometimes being real isn't enough. When the person you're standing in front of doesn't know how to receive something real without trying to control it. And I didn't. I didn't know how to let something exist without measuring it, without preparing for the moment it might change, without quietly positioning myself near the exit, just in case. There's a memory I can't shake lately. It's not dramatic. No big moment, no argument, no ending scene, just something small. We were sitting there, close enough that I could feel the shift in energy between words. Not tension, just awareness. You said something simple, and then you looked at me, not through me, not past me, at me, and for a second, I felt seen in a way I didn't prepare for. Not the version I show people, the real one. The one that doesn't always know what to say next. The one that hesitates. The one that, if I'm being honest, still questions if any of this is enough. And instead of leaning into that moment, I pulled back internally. You wouldn't have noticed it right away. I didn't make it obvious. I never do. But something closed. And I told myself it was the right move. Stay composed, don't give too much, keep the balance. That's how I've always operated, but here's the part I didn't expect. That moment didn't disappear. It followed me. Later that night, the room was quiet again. Same controlled environment, same stillness I'm used to, but this time, it felt different, heavier, like something unfinished was sitting in the air. I replayed it, not the conversation, but the feeling. That brief second where I almost let go of control without realizing it. And instead of feeling relief that I caught myself, I felt something else. Regret. Not loud, not overwhelming, just enough to make me question myself. And I don't question myself often. That's when it hit me. I didn't just distance from you. I distanced from something I might not get back. Because here's the truth. No one really says out loud. Timing doesn't wait for you to become ready. It moves. And people move with it. You don't get to pause someone while you figure yourself out. You don't get to circle back when it's convenient and expect them to still be standing in the same place, feeling the same way. Life doesn't work like that. And deep down, I know that. Which is why this part isn't easy to admit. There's a real possibility that by the time I learn how to stop controlling everything, you won't be there to meet me in that version, and I wouldn't blame you, because waiting for someone to become emotionally available is one of the most exhausting things a person can do. Let me ask you something. How long would you stay if you felt someone holding back even when they had every reason not to? Would you fight for it? Or would you eventually choose yourself and walk away, even if part of you didn't want to? Because if I'm being honest, I think I already know what you'd choose. And maybe that's what makes this harder to sit with. Because for the first time, I'm not just thinking about what I protected. I'm thinking about what I lost before I even allowed it to exist. And here's the pattern interrupt no one expects from a man like me. I don't regret losing people. I regret not showing up fully when I had the chance. That's a different kind of weight. Because it doesn't come from what happened. It comes from what didn't. From the conversations I kept controlled instead of honest. From the moments I shortened instead of stepping into. From the version of me that stayed guarded, even when something real was right in front of him. So now I'm here. Not trying to rewrite anything, not trying to reach back into something that already shifted. Just understanding it. Finally. But understanding doesn't undo anything, and growth, real growth, it doesn't guarantee another opportunity. It just makes you aware of what you'll do differently, if one ever comes. And that's the part I don't have control over. Whether it's with you, or someone else, or no one at all. Because the truth is, I'm still standing at that edge. Still deciding if I'm ready to let something real exist without trying to shape it into something safe. Still questioning whether I know how to stay, when everything in me is trained to leave. And there's one thought that hasn't left me since, if I saw you again, not the version I knew, but the version of you that moved on, grew, changed, would I finally be able to meet you where you are? Or would I feel that same hesitation, that same instinct to step back, right before something real begins?